Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us for our monthly webinar series. Today, we'll be talking about luxury Chinese tourism, looking specifically at the Eastern Hemisphere and examples from that part of the world. So we'll be starting the webinar today with some of the major current trends for luxury travel from China. The Chinese outbound travel market in general is very segmented, and the luxury travel market is very segmented as well. And so we'll be looking at many of the different segments within luxury. Then moving on to mobile behavior, some of the apps that are most important to reaching Chinese luxury travelers. Some of the mobile behavior also includes using travel agencies, so we'll also be looking at some of the biggest Chinese travel agencies that deal specifically with luxury travel, and then move on to strategies for marketing, as well as services that you need to provide to Chinese high net worth customers. So my name is Sienna, and I'm the Communications Manager for Dragon Trail Interactive, but today our webinar speaker is Roy Graff, who's the Managing Director for Europe, the Middle East, and Africa for Dragon Trail Interactive. He's been in Chinese outbound travel for several decades now and has extensive experience working in the luxury sector, as well as the founder of China Edge, which is a partnership for luxury brands in 2013, and he's worked a lot with hotels as well as retail, as well as a lot of experience with Chinese luxury travel in general. So for those of you who don't know Dragon Trail Interactive, we are a digital marketing and solutions agency. We focus specifically on digital, specifically on China, and specifically on travel. And so because we are so focused, it means we have a lot of very specific information on these areas as well. Our clients, we have clients on 6 different continents in 60 different countries, and these include hotels, national tourism boards, regional tourism boards, airlines, attractions, cruise lines, and more. So I think I'll let Roy take over now. Roy, the screen is still not full, so it'll be hard for people to read the slides.
All right, I'm going to try and share it again. It was looked full for me. Can you see the screen now?
It is now, thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm excited to be giving this webinar. Let's just start right off the bat with the top trends in luxury travel based on a number of different recent reports and our own work with customers in this sector. So the Hurun report, which is published every year around ILTM Asia and now ILTM China, looks at surveys of high net worth individuals, as well as surveys of high-end travel agencies and tour operators. The top destinations in 2018 from the survey start with the Maldives, Japan, France, Hawaii, Australia, USA, Dubai, Switzerland, Thailand, and Italy. And the top overall regions the Chinese high net worth individuals find most attractive are top is Europe, Americas, Africa, which has had a good growth, a growth rate from last year, then Southeast Asia, and Japan, South Korea. Compared to last year's results, Africa was the fastest rising and breaking into the top 3. The Americas increased slower, and Europe fell 6% compared to last year. Overall, we see that there's more popularity to harder to reach destinations. So that would include places in Africa, Latin America, and North Pole and South Pole travel. Now, in terms of seasonality, most luxury travel happens around the Chinese New Year and the October holiday. So those are the national kind of golden weeks, as well as travel during the summer that tends to be more family oriented. Lesser so is Labor Day around May and the Mid-Autumn Festival that are long weekends. Generally, we see that more and more people are more flexible with their travel time. And the top destinations this year for Chinese New Year were Australia, Thailand, and New Zealand. Top concerns among high-end travelers are pretty stable in terms of what we see year on year. A lot of it is around safety and security. People are concerned about things that they can read about and know about, like natural disasters, crime, safety around traffic and travel, and lesser so things around hygiene and travel facilities and petty crime. So I think that overall, I mean, what this really tells us is that there's a lot of much that is the same between what the luxury and the mass travel overall sees as the highest concern, and there's nothing really too different there. Now, what we see also growing is the growth of custom travel, and that's especially important to affluent Chinese who are very, very busy, are cash rich, but time poor. As an example, Ctrip's customized travel platform received over 20,000 orders a month in 2018, and the split in travel tends to be 44% group, 42% FIT, and 40% semi-independent travel, or SIT. Now, we still see that there's a lot of demand for very intensely packed, kind of active holidays, where there's a lot happening every day, and they can really fill in a lot of stuff to do. Again, that goes back to being quite time poor and knowing that they're not going to get to travel to these destinations probably again. So doing as much as possible, and also trying to enjoy the luxury experiences that are on offer. As an example, Kenya's Tourism Board from this year launched a video that featured a Chinese couple enjoying private plane travel, bidding in helicopter and hot air balloon, going on safari, horseback riding, private dining, etc. And it was very popular in terms of the reception it got on social media. The new priorities in terms of the trends that we see are focusing on things to do for the whole family. So making sure there's activities for children, making sure that the activities also have an education element. So basically around betterment and things that might help them with their future career. Chinese couples think about that quite early on in the child's life. Cultural experiences, so basically learning more about foreign cultures and getting deep cultural insights. Things around health, so that can include basically experiencing very clean, natural environments, so clean air, clean water, clean food. Restorative experiences, spa treatments, and making sure that there's convenience as well. So anything that can be accessed through their mobile, functionality added to WeChat, through mini programs, helps them discover and engage with, and then share these experiences that they have on their travel. Now, I'm going to talk through some of the market segmentation, because it's really important. It's actually crucial when you're targeting the high net worth Chinese to take the time to understand their motivation, their background, their kind of culture, where they come from in China, how they make their money, their preferences. And the more segmented you can do that, the more focused you can be on specifically the target market, the audience that you are catering to, the more success you will have with engaging them, making them interested, but also keeping them happy on their traveling. To that end, we're looking at both segmentation in terms of what kind of wealth they have, as well as age and socioeconomic background. Now, we know that in China, because people have had one child or two children now, then that they can basically retire early and enjoy their retirement, and they're relatively healthy and strong when they retire. So the silver travelers are definitely recognized as a strong power in travel. And the older high net worths do prefer more recognized international brands in hospitality and in retail and use that as their status symbol. They rely on consultants as well as their children to help them plan the travel. And for example, 58% of Chinese visitors to Antarctica are over the age of 45. And I think that where it's possible to offer relatively comfortable, soft adventure travel, then this is a great market to focus on. The millennial high net worths prefer more design boutique hotels, niche designers that are not that internationally well known, looking for things that are made in the destination that they visit, and are really interested in unique experiences. They're heavily influenced by their network on social media, on WeChat and Weibo, and they share a lot of their experiences and selfies online. And they also have a lot of influence on what their parents do if they travel together as a family. Similar to the Chinese millennial travel market generally, luxury travel is female dominated, and a lot of the decision making is actually done by women. We also have another sector which is more secretive, confidential, celebrities, officials, people with a high profile that want to protect their privacy when traveling. When they travel with children, they don't want really people to take pictures and have that on the internet. Oftentimes, kind of Chinese tourists in groups and kind of more of the mass market, they love taking pictures of celebrities they recognize from China and sharing that on social media if they see them around, traveling around the world. So they may opt for private villas, private catering, and have kind of private suites where they can basically be hidden away, and may even travel on false names. Now, in terms of the source of wealth, again, we can segment them into 6 different segments, with the modern business owners being younger. Their average age is younger than successful business owners in the West, often involved in new sectors of industry. Quite well traveled and educated, often mix business and pleasure together, or they may travel with their wife or partner, and while they do the meetings, their partner will be enjoying tourism. Their tastes tend to be more individualistic, and they're not following trends as much. International professionals, white collar workers working in multinational companies. They're highly educated, often educated abroad, or in the top Chinese universities, have a great network, tend to speak English and other languages quite well, and have more sophisticated international taste, and tend to think of themselves more as international travelers than Chinese travelers. And we'll get back to that a bit later. We also have a category of nouveau riche that are self-made, often come from poor backgrounds, and have made their money in downstream manufacturing, real estate, stock investment, mining, and trading. They may not speak English at all, rely on assistants and consultants, and often spend money on things that help them show that they've made it, and help the people back in where they come from, in their hometowns, basically know that they are successful. And they may have more ostentatious kind of taste when it comes to travel. We also have the second generation, so now referring to the millennials as well. They are children of top officials, of the nouveau riche, and the traditional business elites. And they tend to be, again, educated at top universities and overseas, like to show off their lifestyle and share it on social media, and often follow international trends as well as Chinese trends. The segment of delegations and officials, where groups of business officials travel together, that segment has become less important in recent years because of government crackdown on corruption and on official travel budgets. So they have less money to spend on travel, and oftentimes they will be more secretive when they travel for leisure because they don't want people to see what they're doing. There's still the delegations, that's still an important segment, but they're limited in how much time they can spend in different countries, for how long they can travel overall. But many of them have children that go to school overseas, and they will go to visit their children and still need accommodation and other travel support while they do that. And traditional business elites are typically older, typically male, have been working in the traditional industries for a long time. They're used to their wealth and tend to be quite more discreet. They prefer well-known, recognized hotel brands and retail brands, and also work, basically travel with the help of assistants and travel consultants. Now, in terms of how Chinese high net worth travel and what is the relationship with their mobile phone, I think it's important to focus on that because it may not be unique to China, but definitely we see this as a much more strong bond that they have with their mobile in China. And the best examples of that is WeChat. I think the people on this call probably all know about WeChat and have heard of WeChat or maybe have WeChat, but just for those that may not, it is a closed platform, meaning that the content shared on WeChat does not get tracked or searched on search engines like Baidu, the search engine in China. And they have an internal search engine, but basically this level of protection makes it a platform that people tend to trust more than other public platforms. And people can share exclusively with their own network as well as make things public. And you can also have public accounts that can then be followed by people who are interested in your brand. Now, 34% of Chinese high net worth and 39% of millennials have said in surveys that word of mouth was the key factor when they choose a travel destination. And basically, your friends network, your family network is the main source of travel inspiration. So using social media is a way of really cementing that. And the more that you can do to help people share what they've done at your destination or in your establishment with their network, this is basically the best way to push word of mouth marketing. Xiao Hongshu, the Little Red Book, is a trendy new app that started by focusing on shopping and sharing inspiration for different for shopping and for fashion, popular with affluent women who live in first-tier cities. And it's a good way of seeing what this demographic is interested in. More and more of the sharing and the pictures have an element of travel, shopping in different destinations, and figuring out which cities are best known for shopping and what kind of fashion, as well as focus on different outlets and malls and famous department stores. The posts you see here are around basically sharing a private jet in Saipan, a travel trip, shopping trip to Italy, and a post about a 7-star hotel in Dubai. And of course, there are more niche travel platforms and apps, and we don't have time to go through all of them, but it's definitely worth investigating if there are specific niches where your services and your destination will stand out. Now, we're covering a number of agencies that you may want to engage with on B2B travel. And this is based on the top five agencies for luxury travel from an article by Jing Daily. Sparkle Tour is a sub-brand of CYTS, China Youth Travel Service, which is a major traditional travel agent tour operator in China. Used to be government-owned, now it's privatized, but they have branches all over the country. They launched this luxury arm to help basically their top customers custom plan their trip and have more in-depth consultation. An example here is of an 8-day package to Switzerland that includes spa and day trips and starts from US dollars, almost $10,000. Xanadu was a startup, so it didn't come from a particular big company. It was a startup, luxury OTA. Has over 1 million users, and it offers, again, bespoke tours around the world, selected accommodation and packages that are based on your interests and your destination kind of interests. It's basically offer mainly kind of access through their mobile app, but they work both on app and on a PC. HH Travel is a brand that Ctrip acquired, and they provide WeChat-based services and cater for the top level of customers at Ctrip. And most of it is done online. Here's an example of a 9-day trip to New Zealand with golfing, hot air balloon, and private wine tasting, starting from around $19,500 per person. 8 Continents Travel, another startup with a pretty easy to use WeChat mini program and app, and often work with families. So they again offer basically bespoke packages that you can buy, and they'll be then customized to your tastes. Bishan is a relatively newcomer for the last few years. It is actually coming from a company that had a luxury inbound business called Wild China. The founder then created a version of that for outbound travel, focused on kind of high net worth, more sophisticated Chinese travelers that are interested in tours that are slightly off the beaten track. So that can be whitewater rafting in the US, and it can be safaris, and basically not necessarily the kind of standard top attractions in the top cities. Now, when it comes to services and marketing, we want to give you share some recommendations and learnings about the best way that you can adjust your services to cater to this market, and also what are the marketing channels that will help you when it comes to getting your product to the right people. There is the B2B approach and the B2C approach, and depending on what you're offering and how well catered you are to directly servicing Chinese on the customer service side, one or both might be right for you. When it comes to travel trade shows, it's a good way still to make the initial connections, but it's not enough. So making the connection with the right agencies, travel consultants, and specialists is important, and that can be done with a trade show such as ILTM China, which is now the only luxury-focused trade show. It used to be ILTM Asia until last year, and now they split it out. So there is a China-only event happening in Shanghai in October. It's a good idea to figure out who are the agents that have the business for you, and then organize a fam tour for them, so they really understand your product up close. And if you do go to a trade show, or if you don't, it's still really important to make appointments, to go visit them in their offices, to understand how they work and build personal relations with them. One way to encourage a lot more engagement and reach out to a wider audience beyond, say, only Shanghai or Beijing, and because these agents sit close to where their customers are, and that can be in any number of the top 40 cities in China. And you don't have the time to go and visit all of them, but you could do that virtually using something like CTA Love webinars. This is a program that we offer, but there are various ways to basically use technology to invite Chinese travel agents to come and watch your presentation and engage with you directly online. We use WeChat as the platform because this is where the agents prefer to be, and that's basically the best way to reach them. And some examples include of destinations that use CTA Love include Switzerland, Germany, Peru, and many others. And that can be done as an ongoing series. It can also be recorded and shared later. It's also possible to have a Q&A involved in there, as well as to listen again later, so to record the whole thing so people can download it and watch it again. And you can also partner between the National Tourism Board and private companies. As an example, German Tourism Board and Lufthansa did a joint webinar on packages. Now, when it comes to B2C marketing, the approach is to use those platforms that we mentioned and social media to attract the younger generation, because they can travel by themselves but also influence their parents' decision. And those can be done through apps like Xiaohongshu that we mentioned, Weibo, WeChat, and Douyin. And beyond that, what is really important with this market is to basically hold their hands, to give them ongoing support, to basically make sure that they're not feeling left alone. To that end, using WeChat for customer support is really efficient and cost effective. Something that we work with is our own program called ConCon Talk, which is WeChat-based, AI-driven, assisted customer service platform. And that is something that can be deployed at hotels, attractions, for tour operators that have bespoke package travel. And it doesn't mean you don't have to have your own WeChat accounts in order to use that. The point is that it's a platform that engages with the user on their WeChat profile. When it comes to services and amenities, so some of the trends that we've mentioned before lead to maybe changing needs when it comes to how they travel and what they're looking for. So more and more family travel. Now younger people can have 2 kids. They are looking for connecting rooms where the families can actually have a shared living room that they can play cards or socialize together. A lot of the rise in business travel also leads to people needing more confidential private meeting areas in the hotel. And also popularity of Japanese smart toilets. So where if that's a feature that you have, it's good to promote that as well. In terms of accommodating the high net worth clients, so customization and personalization are definitely key. The more you can understand about them and personalize the experience, understanding their motivation will lead to understanding what their interests are and what requirements they have. Being flexible, dealing with understanding when it comes to last minute changes of the requests. Again, it's not because they're being difficult, but they are very, very busy and their plans do change. I think that they'll definitely appreciate accommodating their needs, allowing for things that change last minute, and they will reward that. Also, they're quite happy to receive small upgrades that are kind of a nice surprise. That can be done with all kinds of exclusive experiences, something unique, cutting the line, having private shopping, and things like that. So I don't think it's more about discounting, but it's about making sure they feel they have value for what they spent with a few extras. Now, with the more sophisticated market, oftentimes if everything you do is about being China ready and having Chinese language information everybody and speaking in Chinese to all the customers and things like that, there is a point where that can be an overkill for travelers who regard themselves as international. So making yourself too Chinese friendly can be a bit of a put off for these kind of customers. And I think that generally high net worth individual customers will not necessarily look to stay in places that have mass Chinese tourism. Because again, while they appreciate certain small touches, they're also looking for the international experience, not the Chinese experience. To also find out more information, and because as I mentioned, it's really important to take your time to study and understand that, I recommend that you look at our blog, look at the different resources we have there. We've got white papers, we got presentations, we have videos and articles. You can do a search for luxury and find related articles about that. Also, the book that I wrote, China, the Future of Travel, which can be ordered on Amazon, has chapters about luxury travel and about kind of customer behavior if you're really starting out in that space. And follow us on LinkedIn, on Twitter, or on Facebook. And you're welcome to also go to YouTube and search for the China Outbound Travel Pulse, where every 2 weeks, we publish a new video interviewing Chinese customers at airports on different topics around their travel. And that I think you'll find that quite interesting. I'm leaving some time now for Q&A. You're also welcome to subscribe to our China travel newsletter by subscribing directly on our website. But and before we go today, there'll be a short survey where we ask for your feedback and suggestions for future topics for our webinar. But I'm happy to take questions. You can use the Q&A button that should appear on your tab, and use that to type in your questions, and we can answer them for everybody to hear. So are there any questions? There's a question from Mamoon about having this as a PDF. So yeah, after this presentation, you will receive an email with a link to download a PDF of the presentation. So everybody that signed up for this webinar will get the presentation to download.
I would also jump in to say that we'll also be sharing a link to a recording of the webinar in case you want to rewatch it or share it with anybody else who wants to watch it and miss this morning's session. And on our website, as well as finding the China Outbound Pulse videos, the short videos that we do with interviews, you'll also find recordings of all of our previous webinars. So we do webinars once a month, every time on a different topic, and you can review all of the past webinars on our website.
Hi, Andrea. There's a question about the breakdown in market share between the different segments we talked about. I can't give you an actual percentage breakdown. This is something that changes, and there's certain people that are belong to different camps. As you can imagine, there'll be second generation that are also independent business owners in their own right now, and there's a so that all gets mixed in. We do have more statistics on, and again, this is available in the HNWI report on how many overall kind of, how much of the overall market is percentage share for high net worth. And if you want specifics on that, I welcome you to send us an email at communications@dragontrail.com with specific questions on that, and we can try and dig that up for you. But again, I would caution against relying on statistics when it comes to specific numbers of market share. A lot around outbound travel statistics in terms of the numbers can be misleading. For example, we talk about 160 million outbound trips. About half of that is only to Macau, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. And different destinations, different countries measure Chinese visits and Chinese bed nights in very different ways. Some measure like nights instead of visits because they get to collect information from the hotel. And so it's not identical in every destination. As far as we have another question about travel to Egypt. So travel to Egypt isn't profiled as luxury travel as such. I think generally it's more considered as a mass market destination for groups, and people, again, for security reasons, prefer to travel there in groups rather than as individuals. There's not much information about how easy and convenient it might be to travel there as self-organized groups or as FIT. And to do that and to attract luxury, you need to position the destination as such and be able to share that information with the market. And that hasn't happened to date. Another question from Alessandra. As an Italian startup, They would like to know if you can connect with Chinese tourists only through WeChat, or they're trying to use other mobile apps when they come to visit. So WeChat is definitely an app that is used both before, during the trip, and after the trip. So they are on WeChat as they travel. What generally limits them is if they can't get on Wi-Fi and if roaming is really expensive. So offering free Wi-Fi is extremely important in that sense. And engaging with them on WeChat is definitely good, but engaging people that you already found is one thing. WeChat as a closed platform, you can advertise on WeChat. It's quite expensive, but it can be targeted. So if you have the budget, you can do that. But ultimately, there are other ways to get the people to follow you on WeChat, and that might require having a good web strategy with the search engine in China, with Baidu, working with influencers, and finding other ways for offline marketing. So WeChat is a great place to engage and to support clients, but it's difficult to only build up your reputation and your brand based on WeChat. Question from Anna: how many days a year or how many weeks on average do they spend on holidays abroad? Well, for the high net worths, traveling twice or 3 times abroad a year is typical. Maybe only one big trip, like a week or 2 weeks, and a couple of shorter trips. And that tends to be the average. But I think that for certain segments, like the independent business owners and millennials, they have more weekends away in Southeast Asia, Japan, South Korea, Singapore, Malaysia, etc. And then a long trip in October or Chinese New Year, and possibly also the summer. So high net worths travel quite a lot, but I think there are only 2 weeks of paid holiday for employees in China. That's the law, and that limits how much time they can take. And the Chinese government also is encouraging people to spend more time traveling domestically, and offering kind of long weekends, 3-day weekends, more to encourage that. Another question: do Chinese high net worths fancy multi-destination groups? So in terms of whether they fancy multi-destinations, so people, high net worths tend to value their convenience, and traveling in big groups is not that convenient. If it's a big country, then no, but they definitely do want to have value and have a packed itinerary. So if it's convenient and easy to travel between places without too much hardship, they would want to see more destinations. And if they travel in groups, it'll be small groups of their friends or family. Because of, and the other question you asked about having contacts with other attendees, I'm afraid that because of GDPR rules in Europe, we can't share that information of who else has attended this call.
There's one more question in the chat about from Matthew Wyatt. How measurable is marketing by WeChat, and does it share the same engagement metrics as social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter? So one good way of actually measuring engagement on WeChat is by looking at Dragon Trail's WeChat rankings, which we publish once a week and then also do quarterly and annual reports. Because WeChat is a closed platform, it's for example, it's impossible to see how many followers another account has. You can only see that about your own account. So while there is more information available to you about your own account, if you want a benchmark of understanding maybe how well your account is doing compared to others, if you're a destination or a hotel brand, then we collect information every week on overall engagement on WeChat. So how many views every article has received, and how many articles and how many views the top ranking article got, as well as how many likes all of the articles got. And we compile those numbers for national tourism boards, regional tourism boards, airlines, cruise lines, hotels, and museums and attractions. So all of that information is available on our website to see. But yes, on the back end of WeChat, you would also have more information that you could see about your own account.
There was another question here. How do we encourage Chinese to book directly to the hotel instead of a travel agency? Well, to book with a hotel, first off, you have to get them to visit your website or your WeChat. If you're an independent hotel, that might be tricky in terms of like promoting. But ultimately, it has to be fully localized. You should be able to accept Chinese payment solutions like Union Pay or WeChat Pay or Alipay, and offer them some kind of incentive. I mean, the travel agencies, when they make the booking, they will also offer a local receipt. And if it's a package, then there will obviously be ways for them to make it, to have more of an incentive to book. But for high net worth customers that want privacy, that want better service, they will look at booking at the hotel as a way of getting that. And if you can basically guarantee that the service will be better, that they'll be more customer, more personalized, then it's possible to encourage it. And we're talking about people that are paying, several $100s to up to $3,000 for a hotel night. So if there is no other questions, please, Sienna will share the survey with you, and really appreciate your feedback. And then stay tuned or subscribe to our newsletter, follow us on social media so we can let you know when our next webinar will be. Sienna, I believe we're not doing one in December, right?
No, not in December. So the next one will be in mid-January, but we will have information about that coming to our website very soon. So I would say in the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to announce the topic and you can start registering for it.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending. If you have more specific questions or you want to discuss your specific business, feel free to contact myself or Sienna. Her email is here on the slide, and also I'm available at roy.graf@dragontrail.com. Have a great day.